"You're not ambitious enough," my fiancée told me, right before announcing her engagement to my best friend. I let her think she'd won. But at their wedding, karma handled the vows. All right, Reddit, get ready to hear this absolute shit show of a story. Happened 2 years ago, and I'm finally ready to spill everything. Names changed, obviously, but the drama? 100% real. This involves my ex-fiancée who thought she was God's gift to humanity, my former best friend who couldn't keep it in his pants, and a wedding that went down in flames. I'm Noah, 29 male, and I run an electrical contracting business here in Colorado Springs. I started as an 18-year-old making $12 an hour, worked my rear end off for a decade, and bought out my boss when he wanted to retire. I've got 8 guys on payroll, and we handle high-end residential and commercial work. This story revolves around 2 people I trusted completely. Kiara was my fiancée of 3 years. Blonde, polished, worked in event planning, which basically meant she organized parties for rich people and acted like she was running Apple. Met her at a wedding where she was coordinating. She had that expensive look that screams high maintenance, but you don't care because damn. Then there's Sam, my boy since middle school when his family moved here from Cali. We played baseball together, went to trade school together, stood up at each other's family weddings. He went HVAC, I went electrical. We'd work the same job sites, split referrals, grab drinks every Friday. The guy was supposed to be my brother. My first 2 years with Kiara were solid. She'd brag to her friends about being engaged to a successful contractor and show off photos of the crazy expensive systems I'd install. We talked about the wedding, buying a house together, the whole package. I was proud of what I'd built, and she seemed proud to be marrying me. She had expensive taste, but claimed she earned every penny. Her business was growing. Corporate events, high-end weddings, anniversary parties for oil money and tech bros. I respected the hustle, even when it meant working weekends and getting emergency calls during our date nights. Sam was crushing it too. Started his HVAC company around the same time I bought mine. We'd hit the brewery every Friday, compare war stories, plan fishing trips. Kiara would join us sometimes, and she always seemed really interested in Sam's business approach. "Sam's always pushing boundaries," she'd say after he left. "It's impressive how he thinks about growth opportunities." I figured she was just interested since she was building a business too. It made sense she'd want to understand different approaches. What I didn't realize was that she was already comparing us, and I was losing points for reasons I couldn't see yet. The comments started subtle. "You could probably charge more if you invested in better marketing." Or, "Sam mentioned this contractor networking group. Might be worth checking out." Still seemed supportive. She wanted me to succeed, right? Wrong. See, here's the thing about women like Kiara. They're never actually satisfied with what you've built. They always need you to be building something more impressive to show off to their friends. A successful business isn't enough. It needs to be a rapidly expanding empire, or you're not reaching your potential. The first real warning came at a dinner party with her work crowd. 8 couples, all corporate types. Lawyers, marketing executives, some couple who owned a trendy restaurant. I was the only one who worked with his hands, which apparently made me the evening's entertainment. When people asked what I did, Kiara introduced me as Noah, he's an electrician, not he owns an electrical contracting business, or he's a master electrician with his own company. During dinner, someone brought up an article about skilled trades making serious money these days. Finally, something I could actually contribute to. "Noah could speak to that," Kiara said. "He does really well for someone in the trades." Like I was punching above my weight just by sitting at their table. I let it slide that night, but it stuck with me. That's when I started paying attention to her patterns. And what I found was way worse than I thought. She'd steer conversations away from my business wins and towards Sam's expansion plans. She'd mention my work to friends only in the context of how different it was from their careers. She treated my expertise like a party trick instead of professional knowledge. But the real kicker? She'd complain about her event planning stress to me, then tell her friends how much more complex and demanding her job was compared to technical work. I should have called off the engagement right then, but I was thinking with the wrong head and making classic mistakes. That's why you should never ignore red flags, boys. They're always waving for a reason. The breaking point was Memorial Day weekend. She planned a barbecue at my place, about 20 people from her work plus my crew. I spent the afternoon grilling, making sure everyone had drinks, playing perfect host while she networked and took credit for organizing everything. Around sunset, I was cleaning up the kitchen when I heard her talking to her friends on the patio. "Noah is great, but he's very settled," she was saying. "Like, he's found his groove and he's comfortable staying there. Sam's always pushing boundaries, looking for the next big opportunity. Is that a problem?" Someone asked. Not a problem exactly, just different mindsets about life. Some people are satisfied with steady income, and some people want to build something bigger. I stood there holding plates, listening to my fiancée explain to her friends why I was fine for now, but not husband material. The tone wasn't mean. It was worse. It was dismissive. I love him, she continued, but sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be with someone who really challenges himself, someone with a bigger vision for the future. That night, after everyone left, I called her out. I heard what you said about me being settled with your friends. She looked genuinely surprised, like she couldn't believe I'd been listening to her public performance review of our engagement. Come on, I wasn't being negative. You are settled. With yourself, your business, your life. That's not necessarily bad. The way you said it made it sound like settling. I'm not settling, Noah. I love you. I just think you could push yourself more if you wanted to. Push myself toward what? She didn't have an answer. What she really wanted, apparently, was already coming by every Friday and feeding her fantasies about strategic business growth. Summer hit and Kiara's business exploded. Bigger contracts, longer hours, more stress. She'd come home exhausted, complaining about demanding clients and impossible deadlines. The Hale account wants to change their entire corporate retreat theme 3 weeks out, she'd vent. Do they think I can just snap my fingers and redesign everything? I'd listen, offer support, and try to help her decompress. But these conversations always shifted into subtle comparisons with my work. At least electrical work is straightforward, she'd say. Wire goes here, switch goes there. My job requires constant creativity and client management. Right, because I definitely never dealt with entitled homeowners wanting to change electrical plans halfway through installation, or general contractors blaming me for their scheduling mess-ups. Sam started coming around more during this period. He'd stop by when I was still on job sites, supposedly to hang with both of us, but increasingly just to talk business with Kiara. She'd give me detailed reports over dinner. Sam's expanding into commercial refrigeration, she'd announce. He's already talked to 3 potential partners about joint ventures. Good for him. He's looking at market opportunities, building relationships with other contractors. It's impressive how he approaches growth. That excitement in her voice when she talked about Sam's plans. Completely different energy from when she discussed mine. His strategies were impressive and sophisticated. Mine were apparently just staying busy and paying bills. Around this time, Kiara launched her improvement campaign. Maybe I should hire a marketing consultant. Maybe I should look into commercial work instead of residential. Maybe I should join professional organizations, network more aggressively. Sam's making connections that are really paying off, she'd say. You could learn from his approach to building relationships. Never mind that my residential focus was intentional. I liked working with homeowners, took pride in custom solutions, and made excellent money without the headaches of commercial bidding wars. But Kiara saw contentment as weakness. I'm not saying change everything, she'd clarify when I pushed back. Just think bigger. You're capable of so much more. This became her favorite phrase. The final straw came on a Friday night in late June. We were supposed to have dinner together, but she called around 5 p.m. saying she had a client emergency. Some venue's sound system was malfunctioning, and she needed to coordinate repairs for a weekend event. Sorry, babe, this could take hours. Rain check on dinner? No problem. These things happen. I grabbed takeout and drinks, planning a quiet night catching up on invoicing. Around 8 p.m., I got a text from my buddy James. Dude, I saw Kiara and Sam at Romano's earlier. Figured you were working late or something. Romano's. The upscale Italian place downtown where Kiara loved going for business dinners. 20 minutes from the venue, where she was supposedly handling an audio crisis. I sat there staring at that text for a solid 5 minutes. Either James was mistaken about who he saw, or my fiancée was lying about her emergency. Given her recent pattern of praising Sam's business acumen and finding excuses to discuss his strategies, I was starting to suspect it wasn't mistaken identity. When she got home around 11 p.m., she was full of stories about the audio disaster. The sound technician finally got it working, but it took forever to diagnose the problem, she said while getting ready for bed. What was actually wrong with it? Some kind of connection issue. Very technical stuff beyond what I'd understand. I didn't confront her that night, but I started paying closer attention to inconsistencies in her stories and Sam's casual mentions of running into her around town. 2 weeks later, same pattern. She had a vendor meeting Thursday afternoon that ran late. Sam mentioned grabbing lunch downtown that same Thursday and bumping into Kiara at some restaurant. Small world, he said. We ended up sharing a table since the place was packed. Maybe it was a coincidence. Colorado Springs isn't huge, and there are only so many places where business people eat lunch. But twice in a month felt like a pattern, especially when Kiara never mentioned these random encounters. I started documenting these coincidences without making it obvious, just normal awareness of details that didn't add up. The smoking gun came July 4th weekend. She said she had to work Saturday. Emergency with a wedding venue's lighting system. The bride's family was threatening to sue if everything wasn't perfect by Sunday's ceremony. I offered to help. Lighting systems are literally my specialty. Thanks, but the venue has their own people, she said. You should enjoy your day off. Fair enough. I spent Saturday detailing my truck and updating project schedules. Around 3 p.m., I needed a specific breaker for Monday's job. The supply house was closed for the holiday, but I remembered seeing what I needed at Sam's shop earlier in the week. His business is in an industrial park south of town, not exactly on the way to anywhere, especially not wedding venues. I pulled into the lot and immediately spotted Kiara's white Audi parked behind the building, back where employees park, hidden from street view. I sat in my truck processing what I was seeing. My fiancée was supposed to be handling a lighting crisis across town. Instead, her car was tucked behind my best friend's business, like she didn't want anyone seeing it there. The lighting emergency was apparently happening in Sam's office. What a freaking coincidence. I could have stormed inside and forced everything into the open right there. Instead, I took photos with timestamps and location data, then drove home to think. That evening, Kiara came back with elaborate stories about the lighting disaster. The electrician you called figured it out? I asked. Yeah, took most of the afternoon, but we got everything working perfectly. What was the actual issue? Some kind of wiring problem. Really technical stuff. Here's the thing about betrayal. Once you know it's happening, you see it everywhere. Conversations that seemed normal suddenly feel loaded with double meanings. Schedule conflicts that seemed reasonable now look planned. You realize you've been missing obvious signs. I spent the next month documenting everything without changing my behavior. I needed to understand the full scope of what was happening. The answer was worse than I'd imagined. They'd been carrying on for at least 3 months. The business consultations, coincidental lunch meetings, emergency weekend calls, all garbage cover stories for whatever they were doing behind my back. The betrayal hurt, obviously. But what really ticked me off was the disrespect. They thought I was too stupid or trusting to figure it out. I could have confronted them immediately. Instead, I decided to let them think they were getting away with it while I prepared my own plan. Sometimes the best approach is letting your enemies think they're winning, until you're ready to flip the board completely. August brought my busiest season ever. Word was spreading about the smart home systems I'd been installing, and referrals were pouring in from clients who appreciated quality work. Booked solid through February with a waiting list forming for spring projects. I landed a massive contract, complete electrical design for a new luxury hotel downtown. $180,000 project that would establish me as the go-to contractor for high-end commercial work. Kiara noticed the increased business, but instead of excitement about my success, she seemed almost annoyed by it. You're working constantly now, she observed while I updated project schedules. Good problem to have. This is how you build something lasting. I suppose. Just seems like you're always focused on the next job instead of long-term planning. What do you mean? Market expansion, building partnerships with other contractors, thinking about scalability instead of just taking whatever work comes in. She was parroting Sam's business philosophy word for word. His HVAC company was growing fast. New employees, talks about a second location, bigger commercial contracts. Meanwhile, they were getting bolder about their secret meetings. Kiara worked late more often, always with plausible explanations about difficult clients or venue emergencies. Sam found excuses to stop by when I wasn't home, supposedly borrowing tools or discussing potential joint projects that never materialized. I started having casual conversations with people in my professional network, normal relationship maintenance, but I made sure clients and other contractors knew I was reliable, trustworthy, the guy who delivered quality work on time and under budget. Reputation matters in the trades, and I wanted to be positioned well for whatever came next. The first priority was protecting my business assets. I went through every shared account and client contact, making sure Kiara couldn't access anything that could damage my company. Changed passwords, updated bank authorizations, secured customer databases and vendor relationships. If this was going nuclear, my livelihood wasn't going down with the engagement. Second, I documented everything about our shared life. Photos of her contributions to the house, receipts for gifts, vacation records, even utility bills. I wanted zero ambiguity about what belonged to whom. Through careful observation, I started understanding their pattern. They'd been carrying on for months, building emotional intimacy while maintaining the facade of casual friendship. But they were planning something bigger than just messing around behind my back. I could feel it in how they acted when all three of us were together. Too much eye contact, too many inside jokes, too much familiarity disguised as normal friendship. They were building towards something. Then one day, early August, she suggested a romantic weekend getaway. Just us, somewhere beautiful, to reconnect after our busy summer schedules. We've both been so focused on work, she said. It would be good to spend quality time together and really talk about where we're headed. I agreed enthusiastically. Suggested mountain towns, maybe somewhere with hiking and good restaurants. She seemed pleased I was interested in planning something special. What she didn't know was that I'd figured out her strategy completely. A romantic weekend would be perfect setup for a guilt-free breakup conversation. She'd create this intimate setting, then explain how she'd been thinking about our engagement and felt like we'd grown apart. She'd be gentle about it, emphasize that nobody was at fault, we just wanted different things. She'd always care about me but felt we needed to be honest about our compatibility. Make it seem like a mutual decision by two mature adults who recognize their differences. Then, after an appropriate mourning period, she'd start dating Sam publicly. Their relationship would seem natural. Two people finding comfort in each other after difficult breakups. They'd probably tell people how their friendship had slowly developed into something deeper during this challenging time. Clean, minimal social drama. Very Kiara. I played along, enthusiastically discussing weekend options while privately planning my own approach. If she wanted to control the narrative, I'd let her think she was succeeding right until the moment I revealed how much I actually knew. But first, I needed more information about what they were really planning. One evening in mid-August, Sam stopped by to return some wire strippers he'd borrowed. Kiara was working late again, so it was just us drinking sodas on my deck. "You and Kiara seem solid," he said out of nowhere. "Yeah, things are good. Why do you ask?" "Just wondering. You guys ever talk about marriage seriously?" Interesting question from someone who was supposedly just my friend. Why would he care about my wedding timeline unless he had other plans involving my fiancé? "We've discussed it. Probably sometime in the next year or two." "That's cool. She seems like the type who'd want the whole traditional wedding thing." "You thinking about settling down anytime soon?" I asked. "Maybe. If I found the right person. Someone who really understands the business side of things, you know." "That's important," I agreed. "Being with someone who gets your ambitions." "Exactly. Like, you're happy with your business the way it is, which is great. But some people need partners who are always pushing for more, you know?" There it was. Sam had been listening to Kiara's complaints about my limited ambitions and agreeing with her assessment. The conversation continued for another hour, but I'd heard enough. They weren't just messing around. They were planning a future together. They'd convinced themselves they were more compatible, more aligned in their goals, better suited for each other than Kiara and I were, which meant they were about to make this my problem in a very public way. Time to finish preparing my response. Labor Day weekend, Kiara made her move exactly like I'd predicted. Suggested that romantic getaway we'd discussed. Drive up to Aspen, nice hotel, hiking and quality time away from work distractions. "Just us," she emphasized. "No phones, no business calls, just focusing on each other." I agreed immediately. Said I'd been looking forward to uninterrupted time together after our crazy summer schedules. Friday night before we left, Sam stopped by for what he said was a quick drink to wish us a good trip, but the visit felt different, like he was there for a specific purpose. The three of us sat on my deck, making small talk about work and weekend plans. But I could feel the tension underneath. They both seemed nervous. "You guys have something really solid," Sam said at one point, which felt like the most awkward possible thing to say under the circumstances. "We do," Kiara agreed, taking my hand. "This weekend will be perfect for reconnecting." After Sam left, Kiara was unusually affectionate, cuddled up next to me on the couch, talked about how much she was looking forward to our trip, mentioned specific restaurants she'd researched and trails she wanted to hike. It felt like performance art. That night, lying next to her while she slept, I realized this was probably our last night together as an engaged couple. Tomorrow she'd end our engagement, and by next week she'd be with Sam. 3 years would be over, my best friend would be gone, and I'd be starting fresh. I should have felt sadder about it, but mostly I felt relieved. The uncertainty and pretending were almost over, and I could stop acting like I didn't know what was happening. Saturday morning, we loaded up and headed toward the mountains. Kiara seemed excited, talking about the itinerary she'd planned and how nice it would be to focus on just us for the weekend. We checked into this expensive resort around noon, grabbed lunch downtown, spent the afternoon walking around looking at galleries and tourist shops. Dinner was when she made her play. Expensive restaurant, romantic lighting, the whole thing. Noah, I've been thinking about us lately, she said over dessert. About what we both want from life and whether we're still headed in the same direction. Here we go. I love you, and I know you love me. But I feel like we've grown apart this year. We want different things now. I nodded. Like this was shocking news that had never occurred to me. You're content with what you've built. And that's wonderful. You've created something stable and successful. But I need someone who shares my ambitions. Someone who wants to constantly grow and challenge themselves. What exactly are you saying? I think we should break up. Call off the engagement. She said it gently, reaching across to take my hand, like she was delivering tragic news. I know it's hard to hear, but I think we both know we've grown in different directions. We want fundamentally different things from our careers and our lives. I sat there for a moment, acting like I was processing this unexpected development. You know what? You're absolutely right, I said finally. She looked surprised, like she'd expected more resistance or emotional drama. I love you too, Kiara, but I think we've been staying together out of habit more than genuine compatibility. Relief flooded her face. This was going even smoother than she'd planned. I'm glad you understand. I was worried you'd be angry or try to change my mind. I'm not angry. I appreciate you being honest about how you feel. We finished dessert, went back to the hotel, and had one last night together as an engaged couple. Sunday morning, we drove home in comfortable silence. She moved her stuff out that afternoon, taking only what was clearly hers. No drama, no arguments, no demands for shared property. I hope we can stay friends, she said, while loading the last box. I'm sure we'll see each other around, I replied. Small town and all. After she left, I cracked a drink and started making some phone calls. Had some information to share with people who deserved to know what kind of business partners they were dealing with. Time to let Sam's professional network know exactly what they were getting into. 3 months after our breakup, Kiara and Sam announced their engagement. What a beautiful love story. Their romance had blossomed so quickly after they'd both moved on from previous relationships. Pure coincidence that they'd found each other during their respective single periods. They scheduled the wedding for Valentine's Day at some expensive venue outside Denver. Big production, 250 guests, professional everything. Kiara's event planning background meant it would be flawlessly coordinated and Instagram perfect. I wasn't invited, obviously. But small-town contractor networks mean I wasn't disconnected from what was happening either. See, while they'd been focused on their secret romance, I'd been building relationships within the broader contractor community. The electrical trade is tight-knit, especially at the commercial level where reputation matters more than lowest bid. Word travels fast about who delivers quality work and who cuts corners. Sam's rapid business growth had come with some serious problems that were starting to surface. He'd been underbidding jobs to win contracts, then cutting corners on materials and labor to maintain profit margins. His work was getting sloppy, and complaints were circulating among general contractors. I didn't spread gossip or badmouth his business directly. Didn't need to. Poor work speaks for itself, and contractors talk to each other constantly about who to hire and who to avoid for future projects. 2 weeks before the wedding, Tom called me. General contractor who'd worked with Sam on several commercial projects over the past year. You know your ex-buddy Sam Hale? Tom asked. We're not close anymore. Good thing. Because his HVAC work is turning into a nightmare. The system he installed last month is completely messed up. Ductwork is wrong, equipment is undersized, the whole thing needs to be torn out and redone. That's rough, man. Gets worse. Found out he's got similar problems on 3 other jobs around town. Words spreading fast in the GC community. Nobody's going to hire him after this gets out. Perfect timing. His business was about to implode right as he and Kiara started their expensive married life together. But that wasn't even the best part. Kiara had been so focused on planning her perfect wedding that she'd completely neglected her own business. Spent months coordinating her own event instead of serving existing clients. Several major contracts fell through because she was distracted and missing deadlines. Event planning clients don't appreciate coordinators who are too busy planning their own parties. Her reputation for reliability was taking serious damage just as she was about to need steady income more than ever. The wedding itself was beautiful, from what I heard through mutual friends. Perfect flowers, elegant venue, expensive catering. Everything Kiara had dreamed about since she was a little girl, until the reception. Apparently, Sam had quite a few drinks during dinner and decided to make an impromptu speech about their love story. Started telling everyone how grateful he was that fate had brought him and Kiara together, how they'd supported each other through difficult times, how their connection had grown slowly over many months of friendship. The problem was, his timeline didn't match the story they'd been telling people. He was describing conversations and relationship milestones that dated back to when Kiara and I were still engaged. Sam's intoxicated honesty made it crystal clear that their relationship had started long before our mutual breakup. Several people at the reception had been friends with both Kiara and me. They knew exactly when we'd broken our engagement, and they could do basic math. Sam's rambling speech revealed that he and Kiara had been involved, at minimum, for months before our engagement ended. The reception got uncomfortable fast. People started whispering, connecting dots they'd previously overlooked. By the end of the night, everyone understood that my ex-fiancée had been carrying on with my best friend behind my back, then orchestrated our breakup to cover her tracks. Within a week, the story had spread through our entire social circle and professional community. Kiara's reputation as someone who could be trusted with important events was completely destroyed. Sam's credibility was shot too. If he'd lie to his best friend for months, what would he do to business partners? Combined with his mounting business failures, they were facing professional and social ruin simultaneously. And I was just getting warmed up. Fast forward 18 months. I'm sitting in this upscale steakhouse downtown with Paige, my new girlfriend. We're celebrating because I just landed a $240,000 contract for complete electrical design on a luxury hotel complex. Paige is everything Kiara wasn't. Brilliant, loyal, successful in her own right, and has zero patience for games or drama. She owns a physical therapy clinic around the city and makes more money than most doctors. We're halfway through dinner when Kiara appears at our table, like a ghost from my past. Looks like she's been living on energy drinks in desperation for months. Hair greasy, makeup smeared, wearing clothes that scream clearance rack at Target. Noah, I need to talk to you. Paige raises an eyebrow, but stays perfectly calm. And you are? Paige asks. Kiara, his ex-fiancée. Ah, Paige says, taking a deliberate sip of the expensive drink. The one who cheated. How interesting. Kiara's face goes red, but she pushes forward anyway. Noah, please, just 5 minutes. I've been trying to reach you for months. I've been busy building that empire you said I'd never be capable of. Everything fell apart. Sam left me for his secretary last month. I'm losing my apartment next week. Her voice is getting more frantic. I made the biggest mistake of my life. We were perfect together, Noah. We could be perfect again. Paige is watching this unfold like premium entertainment, clearly enjoying the desperation on display. Kiara, you cheated on me for months with my best friend, lied to my face constantly, and manipulated our entire breakup to cover your tracks. What exactly makes you think I'd want you back? Because you loved me. We were engaged. That has to count for something. It counted. Past tense. History. That's when she really notices Paige for the first time. Takes in the designer dress, the expensive jewelry, the way we're obviously together and successful and happy. By the way, who is this witch? Paige's expression shifts from amused to deadly calm. The kind of calm that comes right before someone gets demolished. Excuse me? You heard me. How long have you been sleeping with my boyfriend? Your boyfriend? Paige laughs. Honey, your boyfriend is probably with his secretary right now while you're here begging. This is my boyfriend. Kiara completely loses whatever composure she walked in with. You think you're better than me? You're just some gym rat who swooped in when I wasn't around. Actually, Paige says, setting down her glass with precision, I'm a doctor of physical therapy who owns a successful clinic. I swooped in when you were too stupid to appreciate what you had. Noah, are you seriously going to let this witch talk to me like that? She's defending herself, I say. Something I should have done more often when we were engaged. You were never good enough for me anyway. Kiara's voice carries across the restaurant now. I settled for you. You're just some contractor who thinks he's successful because he wires rich people's houses. Paige leans forward slightly. And yet here you are, literally begging him to take you back. That seems embarrassing. Screw you! You don't know anything! A floor manager stepped over, hands polite but firm. Folks, let's keep it respectful. If this continues, I'll have to ask you to take it outside. Language, Paige says sweetly. We're in a nice restaurant. Kiara turns back to me, switching to full desperation mode. Noah, you know me. She doesn't love you like I did. She's just using you until something better comes along. That's exactly what you did to me, I point out. For Sam, who turned out to be even worse at running a business than he was at being a loyal friend. This is all your fault! Kiara screams loud enough that other diners are staring. You ruined everything! You sabotaged Sam's business! You turned people against us! Sam sabotaged himself by doing terrible work and screwing over his clients. I just happen to know the contractors who had to fix his mistakes. Paige is grinning now. Let me understand this. You cheated on him, left him for his best friend, your husband's business failed because he was incompetent, and somehow that's Noah's fault? You don't know anything about our relationship. I know you betrayed someone who loved you, then came crawling back when your life imploded. That tells me everything about your character. Kiara lunges forward like she's going to grab Paige, but Paige just shifts in her chair. Athletic reflexes versus desperate rage. Would have been a very short fight. You want to try something physical? Paige asks. Because I've seen your wedding photos on social media. You looked beautiful that day. Shame about your intoxicated husband announcing your affair timeline to 250 people. That's when Haley, one of Kiara's remaining friends, appears and grabs her arm. Kiara, stop this right now. You're making a scene. Haley, tell them I'm not crazy. Tell them what really happened. Haley looks mortified. I'm so sorry, she says to us. She's been drinking since the divorce. Kiara, we're leaving now. No, I'm not done. Yes, you absolutely are, Haley says, physically dragging Kiara toward the exit. Please enjoy your evening. As they leave, Kiara screams over her shoulder, This isn't over, Noah! You'll regret this. I seriously doubt that, I call back, raising my glass. The restaurant goes quiet for about 10 seconds before conversations resume. Paige clinks her glass against mine. Well, that was entertaining. She seems stable. She used to hide the crazy better when she had money and status. We finished dinner in peace, tipped our server extra for the show, and went home to the house we'd bought together 6 months earlier. Through mutual friends, I heard Kiara moved back with her parents in Denver and was working at some chain restaurant. Sam married his secretary, but that lasted exactly 8 months before she divorced him too. 2 years later, I'm running the most successful electrical contracting business in Colorado Springs. That hotel project I mentioned? It led to 3 more commercial contracts worth over $500,000 combined. I've got 15 employees now, and we're booked solid through next year. We run weekly safety briefings, and our inspection pass rate is 98% on first visit. City inspectors know our vans and don't linger. Paige and I got married last October in a small ceremony in the mountains. 30 people. Beautiful setting. Absolutely perfect day. No drama. No exes showing up uninvited. Just 2 people who actually know how to treat each other, starting their lives together. We bought a house in the foothills with views that'll make your eyes water. We're both killing it professionally and personally. Last week, I was installing a smart home system for this tech executive when my phone rang. Number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway. Noah? It's Sam. I hadn't heard from him in almost 2 years. Last I'd heard through the grapevine, his HVAC business had completely collapsed, and he was working for someone else's company. What do you want, Sam? Look, I know I messed up. I know what we did was wrong, but I'm trying to rebuild my life here, and I could really use some work. Thought maybe you might have some projects that need HVAC. The nerve on this guy. After betraying our friendship and destroying his own reputation, he wanted me to throw him work. You're calling me for referrals? I'm desperate, man. The divorce cleaned me out, my business is gone. I'm living in a studio apartment and working for $18 an hour. I made mistakes, but I'm trying to do better. Well, I can't help you, I said. Noah, please. I know I messed up our friendship, but I hung up and went back to work. I felt nothing about it. That chapter of my life was completely closed. The funny thing is, Kiara and Sam probably thought they were upgrading when they got together. She wanted someone more ambitious than me, and he wanted someone who understood business strategy. They convinced themselves they were more compatible, better suited for each other. Turns out they were both just shallow people who confused activity with progress and networking with actual achievement. When the pressure hit and real character mattered, they had nothing to fall back on. The best revenge isn't making your enemies suffer. It's building a life so good that their opinion becomes irrelevant. Kiara and Sam can struggle with the consequences of their choices, while I focus on the future with someone who actually deserves my time and energy. Speaking of the future, Paige and I are talking about starting our own family soon. She'd be an incredible mother, and I'm excited about raising kids who will understand integrity and hard work from the beginning. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.